The last section of the reading in Chapter 11 uses heavily a framework that is not particularly easy to figure out what's going on if you haven't had a lot of economics before. So let me explain the last set of figures and the reasoning behind that section that discusses the trade-off between more insurance, more health insurance in particular, and more moral hazard. And we know that more health insurance, there's more moral hazard, and moral hazard has some negative consequences. So what is the right amount of health insurance to have for the society? Is it full? Is it zero? Is it something in between, partial? And that turns out to occupy a bunch of the discussion in the area of healthcare economics. So let's go ahead and look at a couple of those frameworks. The first graphical analysis in figure 11.6 just asks us as a benchmark to think about the case where there's no moral hazard. So in this case, if the rate of illness doesn't depend on whether you have health insurance or not, then that probability of getting sick is just fixed, whatever the level of insurance from zero, and we only consider it up to full. You could have more than full insurance, a policy that pays out more than your loss of being sick, but we're not going to think about that. And the key feature of this graph to explain is this notion of an indifference curve, and they tend to be shaped as follows, and this was labeled I1. And let's think about what's going on in I1. Actually, let's think about extending I1 all the way down to its intercept with the x-axis. So the indifference curves are sets of points among which individuals in society are indifferent. So we're going to think about the typical person's level of well-being. And if the person had some level of insurance, this is partial insurance. If I consider the point along the x-axis, that's having some level of partial insurance with the probability of getting sick of zero. Well, if I want to consider what set of points I'm equally happy, if my probability of illness is going from zero to something greater than zero, well then to be just as well off as I was before, I would need to have something more of something that made me happier, since having a higher risk of illness is making me sadder. Well, that's why this indifference curve slopes upward. And again, it's the infinitude of points that provide some constant level of happiness. And then in this example, in this framework, since it's actually one of these things is a bad, rates of illness going up is a bad, level of insurance increasing, all else equal, is a good. As we move to the southeast, our level of happiness, our level of satisfaction is getting bigger. So this I2 is the set of points that all lead to a common level of happiness, and that level of happiness is higher than that indicated by I1. And finally, we ask, if there's no moral hazard, what's the optimal level of insurance coverage? Well, it would be full insurance. It would be at this point here, as happy as we can be, given that we have some probability of getting sick. And this kind of thinking has led to the creation of universal health care and insurance systems in pretty much, well, I guess we're going to study the systems. This is the thinking behind the Beveridge model, where the government just gives everybody full insurance. We'll see that the Bismarck model is somewhat different. And anyway, that discussion will come in weeks 5 and 6. All right. Well, we know that the rate of illness is not constant as we are insured. That because of moral hazard, rates of illness actually go up with insurance. We're more likely to eat that cheeseburger knowing that we can go in and get a heart stent injected by catheter through our femoral artery, and we don't have to pay but a fraction of the cost, or maybe we have insurance that requires us to pay nothing. So the problem is that in the real world, as this rate of illness rises, the more full the insurance we have, we are more likely to take up hang gliding. We're more likely to be trapeze artists without nets. We're more likely to eat hamburgers. We're less likely to exercise, because some of the consequences of exercise we're protected against because of health insurance. So this was a benchmark. Let's think about what happens when the rate of illness, and thus the premium that would be required for a health insurance contract that even if it's actuarially fair, the higher the rate of illness, the higher the premium that would have to be charged. So as the text does, as we move from figure 11.6 to figure 11.8, the text changes from talking about probability P to price of premium per unit of coverage. So premium per $1,000 paid out. You could think of it that way. In fact, that's how insurance companies talk about it. So let's consider figure 11.8, and that's there's two things going on. One, we're going to move from rates of illness to the rate of an actuarially fair insurance policy on the y-axis, and then we're going to take into account the fact that moral hazard results in an increasing rate of illness and thus an increasing rate of premium per unit of coverage. So by the time we get to figure, that's a G, believe it or not, 11.8, we've got premium per unit of coverage. And again, it's thousands paid out per year in health conditions, whatever, some unit. And then finally we have our x-axis hasn't changed, level of insurance coverage. And again, we're trying to think of what would be the level, the optimum level of insurance coverage. And here we go. That the easiest line is, remember that this is full, and this would be, let's just say P naught, the rate of illness and the associated premium per unit for actuarial fairness. If there's no insurance coverage, but as we get more and more insurance coverage, the chance of illness goes up, the actuarially fair insurance premium would have to go up. Well, what's the optimum look like in this case? Just for contrast, I'm going to change my color. Well, we still have these utility functions that still have the same shape, and we can see that the highest, or maybe you can't see actually, but the point of this graphic is that point A represents the highest level of well-being that can be supported given the presence of moral hazard. So the conclusion of this analysis is that the optimal rate of insurance is greater than nothing. It's positive to be insured against health calamity brought on by health catastrophe, but that the level of insurance that's optimal is less than full. And this is the kind of insight that leads people like me and a lot of much more accomplished economists to conclude that, hey, the best case type of health insurance coverage would look like, people would have protection against, getting hit by a bus or cancer or some of the catastrophes out there that are brought on by bad luck, not by behavior, but that people would and should, for the purpose of eliminating moral hazard, be exposed to the consequences of their risky behavior or their overuse of day-to-day healthcare services. So this is the model behind that conclusion that by the way is fairly widespread among healthcare economists.